Hey guys, Plated here, and today I'm going to be bringing you a video on the origins of Charr, dating back as far as the histories go. I just want to say a special thank you to everyone who subscribed to me recently, and to the support you guys have given me, and to the subreddit of Guild Wars 2. You guys have been awesome, and I hope you continue to enjoy this series. Thanks. The Charr were once a primitive people, filled with rage and primal drive to dominate and control. They fought everything that threatened them, even one another, only surviving this brutal period by evolving into a strict hierarchy society. Desperate, fierce, and independent warbands unified under a single leader, the Khan-Ur, for the good of the race, and a golden age of Charr dominance began. No longer clamoring over the same territories, the unified Charr spread throughout the northern reaches of their homeland, and down into the lands east of the Shiver Peak Mountains. The Charr subjugated and destroyed any and all who dared defy them within their territories. They were masters of all they surveyed. With dominance, however, came the inevitable problems. Internal strife, reckless power-mongering, and brutal feuds threatened to tear apart this otherwise secure empire. Only the strong personality of the Khan-Ur kept this ferocious and yes, still primitive race unified. Other than internal conflicts, the only real threat the Charr faced at this time were the Forgotten, who dwelled within the Crystal Desert far to the south. But through judicious use of the mountains dividing their lands from those of the Forgotten, the Charr continued to maintain undisputed control over the northern lands, and as the Forgotten pulled back, called by the duty of some other power, they ceased to threaten the Charr. Then the humans came, an infestation caused by beings called gods that had been enemies to the Charr since the beginnings of history. The humans worshipped and revered these gods, and in return were given magic the likes of which Charr had never seen before. This upstart race spread like a plague across the continent, and the Charr soon faced a true challenge to their dominance, the threat of humanity. Driven back in the first war against the humans, the Charr were forced to surrender the lands that would become Ascalon. Undaunted and now truly unified against a common foe, the Charr prepared to launch a bitter counterstrike, intending to burn everything in their retreat. However, as they planned the assault, tragedy struck. The Khan-Ur was assassinated. To this day, no one knows who murdered the last Khan-Ur, if some legion had been behind the assassination, or if it was the humans or their powerful gods. With his death, however, the legions once more fell into conflict and chaos. Records of this portion of history are scattered, once like the legions themselves. In the wake of the power void, the children of Khan-Ur squabbled amongst themselves and ultimately divided the empire in their futile attempts to claim the title of Khan-Ur. The humans took full advantage of this time of disunity, building the Great Northern Wall to defend their newly won homelands against the bands of Charr. It would be generations before the Charr would see those lands again. As time passed, the Charr were pushed further and further north, and the humans even began to build settlements beyond the wall, deep into Charr territory. The humans solidified their claims and named their lands Ascalon, and the fragmented Charr could do nothing to stop them. The wall provided a choke point that the Charr could not get past, so they had to content themselves with raids on Sirmia and other northern Ascalon encampments. No Charr knows how many cubs the last Khan-Ur sired, but all four of the High Legions claim descendants from his line. Other heirs are suspected, and occasionally a smaller bloodline surfaces with a claim, but none have made a successful bid. The four heirs of the Khan-Ur began the four High Legions and named them after their warbands: the Iron Legion, Flame Legion, Blood Legion, and the Ash Legion. The leaders of these legions maintained their familial name, keeping surnames such as Flamebringer, Ashclaw, and Ironstrike to delineate their warband supremacy within the legion. There has been no true Khan-Ur for over 1,000 years. Although the position has been claimed several times, no Charr has been able to hold the crown for more than a handful of years, and certainly not enough time to solidify the title and create a new lineage. Each one has been overthrown shortly after making a daring claim. The Charr accept no ruler who is not strong enough to defend his throne. It would take more than a ruler to bring the Charr back to power. Before the time of the humans, it is said that the Charr had no gods, no concept of divine beings with more power than themselves. They knew of Melandru, even had legends that described how she created the world. But to the Charr, these were not beings to be worshipped or feared. They were to be fought, and if possible, destroyed. Yet when the Charr saw the humans worshipping gods and receiving power from them, they blamed this power on the humans' victory. Only with such powers on their side could humans ever be defeated by the Charr. So, in order to fight the human threat, the Charr sought a god of their own. 200 years before the Searing, the Burnt Warband, a group dedicated to the Flame Legion, ventured into the land surrounding the Hrangmere volcano. Upon its return, the Warband claimed to have found the gods for Charr at last. Eager for a new purpose and filled with pride, members of the Flame Legion swore allegiance to these gods, converting or destroying anyone who stood in their path. One by one, the legions of the Charr fell behind the new control of these gods and their shamans, and the Charr at last learned new magic, a new means of destroying their human enemies south of the wall. In the end, the shamans of the rival legions met in secret, unified their differences, and swore to force each legion to follow these new gods. As one, they returned to their individual city-states and convinced their people to worship the Titan, all save for one Charr named Bathia Havoc-bringer. This heroine, whose strength and warrior ability made her a leader among the Blood Legion, fought against this sacrilege and was killed for it by the shamans, her execution a sacrifice to the new gods. Because of Bethia's disobedience to the new order, all females of her legion, and, in short, all females among the Charr, were removed from warbands and armies, reduced to performing utility tasks at the home and cities of the legionaries like making sandwiches. Although they chafed at this restriction and resented being denied their right to the battle against the humans, the shamans, acting on hold orders, were at this time entirely in control of the legions. When the Charr next struck against Ascalon, it was with all fury of destiny denied. With a magic item known to them as the Cauldron of Cataclysm, the shamans called forth the magic of the Titans and performed the ritual of the searing. It is said that the Cauldron's magic was older than the Charr, older than even recorded history, and forged by ancient entities fallen into sleep. The shamans trusted in the power of the Titans and their hold over the Charr lands truly. The devastation they caused to the human kingdom gave the Charr an advantage they had been waiting to seize for 1,000 years. With the cauldron, the shamans summoned titanic crystal meteors to rain down upon their enemies, ravaging farmlands and shattering the wall. One of the leaders of the Flame Legion at the time, Bonfaz Burntfur, spurred the charge against the wall, leading the shamans in a further show of unity. While the humans scrambled and fled under the assault, the Charr flooded into Ascalon, seizing towns and villages and enslaving any humans unlucky enough to fall into their hands. The siege of Ascalon lasted for more than 2 years, until humans struck at the core of the Charr unification by defeating the Titans and proving them to be less than gods. At this point, the Charr advance wavered, changing from a holy war to an occupation. The shamans struggled to keep the legions together in the wake of this revelation, promising them victory even without magic of the Titans. Adding to their trouble, the human resistance continued, as powerful heroes among the Ascalonians fought back against the Charr occupation of Ascalon. Battling their own deterioration as well as the human army, the Charr constricted their control until the humans had one single stronghold, Ascalon City. For more than 30 years, the Charr and the Ascalonians fought back and forth on the ground surrounding the city. Led by their aging king Adalbern, the humans fought valiantly, but at last the walls of Ascalon fell and the Charr invaded the city proper. Yet, even in their moment of ultimate victory, the Charr were thwarted by human magic. Although the Charr were uncertain what magic Adalbern called upon in this moment of defeat, those within the city record seeing a gout of sword-shaped flame descend from the highest tower as a white burning heat swept the city streets. It devastated the invaders. Once this heat wave was gone, the spirits of the defeated Ascalonian soldiers rose, their spectral forms bearing ghostly weapons, and the Charr were forced to abandon the city. Ascalon City has never been retaken, and the ghosts of Adalbern forces roam the land still, fighting their ancient enemy at every turn. The king sits upon his throne within the shattered city, his ghostly form issuing orders and commands to the army of the spectral dead. The Charr solidified their control over Ascalon, from their original lands in the north all the way back to the merging of the two mountain ranges at the Crystal Desert in the south, but Ascalon City forever eluded their grasp. During the time of occupation, however, the Charr learned a valuable lesson. They could conquer and hold territory, even without gods. Indeed, the trickery of the shaman caste and their servitude to the Titans taught the Charr to revile and destroy those who would sell themselves to any master, god or no. Pyre Fearshot, a hero of the Charr people, became an icon of this freedom several years after the fall of the Titans. But his defiance of the shaman caste was only the first blow of many that would eventually shatter the shaman's control over the legions. Pyre's rejection of the shaman caste dominance started an underground movement among the legions. The shamans held on, however, desperately seeking a new god to restore their position, stabilize their power, and allow them to seize the dominance they had lost. The true rebellion began 40 years later, when Pyre's grandcub, Callus Scorchrazor, overthrew the Flame Legion's domination. restoring the legions to their rightful place as the driving force of Charr society and re-establishing their ancient system. Her allies joined on the plains of Golgan in a final battle to overthrow the shaman caste. That day, a female warrior struck a blow for her people. Kala filled the battlefield with women who had been trained in secret for generations, defying the shaman's orders to stay at home and make sandwiches. This effectively doubled the number of Charr allied against the shaman armies and made the difference in the war. The shamans had no choice. Outnumbered and outflanked, they surrendered rather than be eradicated. They were allowed to live because their magic was useful, but never again would be allowed to dominate the Charr. Today, a little more than 250 years after their initial attack on the wall, the Charr still face the threat of Ascalonian ghosts as well as natural dangers. However, they have all but tamed most of the lands east of the Shiva Peaks, raising fortresses of their own where human fortifications once stood. One of the strongest of these, the Iron Citadel, raised in the ruins of the city of Rin, stands protectively overlooking the haunted lands. From there, the Charr may one day retake Ascalon city, finishing the conquest that began so long ago. But through judicious oh my god, this word is annoying. I can't say that word. Through judicious oh my god, this word's impossible to say. Judicious use of the mountains, driving their land from these